Hey, Desert Mountain in LA. First off, I just want to say quick congratulations. Desert Mountain #1 the week before in the entire company. Desert Mountain #3 in the company last week. Huge growth this month. It's a testament to just the teamwork. We've been rolling with this mantra of fast alone and further together. And it's really amazing. See everybody come together, help each other out, hit big new milestones. Same thing in LA, by the way. I know that was kind of geared towards desert, but also LA. Last week alone, it was like 4.6 or 4.7x growth compared to last year. That's where we're at. So these are winning teams. This is a fantastic place to be. Two things that have popped up as I'm just talking to folks that really are emerging for topics that I think are really important to understand. One is urgency, and the other one is competition or comparison. So the question comes up, right? We're talking to a prospect. We're just really thinking about competition or comparison. Well, hey, instead of their publication, I pay XYZ and I get this many, I get this much distribution or whatever, comparison, contribution in general. So I'll share something I think we all know at this point. We talk about in training conference calls. It's pretty common when somebody says, hey, I'm doing this. We don't ever try to, combat or argue or prove why we're better. There's that book, How to Win Friends and Influence by Dale Carnegie. I think it's chapter #1 or very early on. It says, nobody ever wins an argument. So there's no point in arguing with someone or trying to prove that what we're doing is better than what they're doing. For one, if they've already decided to do it, now we're basically saying, hey, you didn't make the best decision possible. And we don't want to get into that sort of a tug of war or battle with anybody. It doesn't help, right? So how do we respond? Usually it's, how's that working for you? How's that working for you? Two simple answers. And I'm going to go deeper on this, by the way. This is kind of the norm that I think we talk about a lot. So it's easy to just put out here in the front. How's that working for you? They go, hey, it's going great. Fantastic. If you love that, you're going to love us, right? That's all we're doing. It's super simple. They say it's not going well. Oh, sorry to hear that. That's why I'm here. Very, very simple responses and approaches. What's really always kind of funny to me is when someone's like, hey, I'm doing this. We're like, how's that working? And they go, actually, it's not good. Like they were almost bragging about it. And then when we ask, they're like, well, actually, it's not so great. So pretty amusing stuff. But I want to talk about the comparison itself. It's, let's say someone, this came up earlier, it came up a few times recently, where somebody said, yeah, they said they were paying XYZ and they're getting, 10,000 copies distributed. Well, 10,000 copies doesn't even mean that 3,000 people are opening the publication. In fact, I was at a restaurant yesterday with my nephews and I grabbed this publication. It just happens to be sitting here next to me. I didn't plan on talking about this, but it looks like a pretty cool magazine, right? It's got a hummingbird on the front. Probably have some version of this where you live. Hey, that's a pretty picture. I haven't even opened it. It's just been sitting here. I kind of grabbed it to look at the ads, but it was in a stack, a giant stack at the bottom of this desk area in the front of a restaurant. In fact, if I wasn't highly motivated to grab it because of being in the magazine advertising business that we're in, it probably still be sitting there in that stack where a bunch of other ones were. In fact, this is the April edition. We're like partway through March. So people aren't really grabbing them, period. There's a ton of traffic in that restaurant, and these were like hiding underneath something. So of that 10,000 bulk distribution, it's important to understand how many of those are even getting picked up or read. Probably a super low percentage. It's not very much, realistically. So that's why they're shoved under there. Versus think about our publication, right? Super high open rate, 89.4% was the HOA survey. That's where that number came from. And I've worked with publishers that have invested thousands of dollars to do surveys in their community and have actually found their open rates to be 94, 95%, somewhere in the ballpark there. We don't use those numbers because they're self-funded studies. And, it's better to have the third party one that we use of 89%. But I share that from a sense of being able to have some conviction in the fact that our open rate is very, very high. Again, we're not using this information necessarily in a meeting, but it's important to understand this, that we're not comparing equally. If someone goes, hey, I pay $1,000 to get 10,000 copies, why is yours, $1,000 for a third of a page for 2,900 homes or whatever that, exact cost or investment may be. So it's important to understand it's not apples to apples. Really what they're saying is, I have this Honda over here, no knock on Hondas, it's just what it is. I have this Honda over here and it costs this much. Why does your Ferrari cost so much? It's kind of a silly question when we ask it like that, right? So it's important to be able to just understand these things So we don't get into that place where we're like, oh, I gotta compete against that other publication that is completely different and has a completely different impact. And should businesses buy larger distribution mass media things? Sometimes, it's important for businesses to invest in as many places as makes sense for their business, especially for the right cost. So if they're doing that, should they do us? Yeah, absolutely. I don't care if they like the other thing or not, they should still work with us. If we ask them, is this an important market for you? And they say yes, then let's figure out how to do business, right? The other component of that is ad size, choosing the right ad size. Let's say they have a full page in this other publication. Well, not every business that has a full page elsewhere actually needs a full page in our publication to be seen. It's super important to understand that, and there are maybe some exceptions to this and some more nuance, but if there's a business that maybe they have a full page in one of those magazines that are all ads, like a home concepts magazine, and it's easy to get lost in there, and they only need a half page in ours, a third of a page, something like that, something relative to the audience. So that's also important. Obviously, bigger ads are better, so why not get a bigger ad if they can afford it and it makes sense? But our publications are read cover to cover, top to bottom, inside out. People refer back to them multiple times per month. So I think it's just important to understand that we're not competing against other media. We're really only competing against how we handle the conversation, competing against ourselves in terms of providing perspective and helping that business understand. The other thing is urgency. Let's talk about urgency. Kudos to Jenny Deering last week on Thursday, having 4 new clients in one day. That's a really big deal. And I believe she feels comfortable with me sharing this, but she basically, because we communicated about it, and I even saw her share it with another publisher, so I feel okay sharing a bit of this. She said some version of, instead of like asking when and how do we make this happen, she really just took charge and said, I'm coming over. We're signing this thing, right? And just took control. And so I share that because there are a lot of artificial ways that people create urgency. And I know kind of in sales in general, teeters on 2 sides. People are overbearing, pushy, almost aggressive in a sense of things. And then some folks are, yeah, call me back next year whenever it feels great. And neither one of those really work well in today's world. Nothing ever happens because you push people away or you never get close enough. And so I share that in a sense of uh, thinking about different ways to say things like, how do we make this happen today, right? In every presentation that we're in front of a decision maker, there should be a beginning, middle, and end. And the end should include us asking for the order, sometimes several times, right? So, urgency isn't necessarily about uh, any kind of special artificial thing. There are real ways to create urgency too. Like, for example, currently, and I use words very specifically when I think about these things, currently we have this promotion, right? So I love that word currently. Even doing a publication tour or looking at the slide where it says the ad sizes and you're going through, when it comes to ad size, and there are some premium spots on the right. Also, saying something like also currently the inside front cover is available currently, because if you say something like it's still available, that can come off as nobody's bought it yet. And there are other ways you could say that, obviously, but that little phrases like that have a big impact. The words that we use in terms of ways to make something happen now create a feeling and it's being real and authentic and helpful too. So you don't have to come up with, cheesy ways to incentivize people to buy today. If you have your own internal sense of urgency and desire to make it now, you'll find when you're communicating with people, the right things will happen and take place. And that phrase, I literally love this phrase. Hey, seems like you want to do something. What would it take to make this happen today? Right? If you're really in a spot where you're like, gosh, what do I do? I asked for the order. They told me they're thinking about this or that. You go back to a second appointment and they still haven't decided. Hey, totally get it. Tell me this. I have some tools in my toolbox in terms of ways to adjust the pricing, try and meet you where you're at. I can cut into my commission. We can do a few different things with the sizes, but at the end of the day, Dr. Nima, what would it take to make this happen today, right? So some tips and thoughts on competition and urgency. Hope that helps, and keep up the great work. I literally see sales coming in here right now as I'm recording this.